The night was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every small sound feel louder than it really was. The man sat in his old wooden house, a cup of cold tea on the table beside him. His dog lay curled at his feet, half asleep, ears twitching now and then. Outside, the world was wrapped in darkness. The moon hid behind thick clouds, and the forest around the house stood still like it was holding its breath. It was close to midnight when it happened. The dog raised its head first. Its ears shot straight up, its nose twitching. A low growl rumbled in its throat. The man frowned, looking down at his companion. He had lived with this dog for years and trusted its instincts. If the dog was uneasy, something was wrong. Then he heard it too. A sound unlike anything he had ever heard before. It wasn't the cry of an owl or the rustle of an animal in the brush. It was sharper, metallic, almost like broken glass humming. A strange vibration that seemed to cut through the air. The man froze. His heart thumped in his chest, every beat loud in the silence. The dog stood, fur bristling, a warning growl deepening in its throat. What was that? The man whispered to himself, though there was no one to answer. The sound came again, this time a little closer. The man pushed his chair back slowly, the legs scraping against the floor. He reached for the flashlight hanging on the wall by the door. His fingers shook slightly, but he told himself it was nothing. Probably an animal, maybe the wind playing tricks, but deep inside he knew this was something else, something unfamiliar. The dog padded to the door before him, muscles tense, tail stiff. It looked back at him as if waiting for his command. The man nodded once, more to himself than the dog, and opened the door. Cold night air rushed in, carrying with it the damp smell of earth and pine. The forest loomed ahead, black shapes against darker shadows. The man clicked on his flashlight, the beam cutting through the mist. "Stay close," he murmured to the dog. They stepped outside together. The world felt different now. He could hear the distant drip of water from the trees, the soft crunch of leaves under his boots, and the sharp intake of his own breath. But beneath it all was the strange sound, faint but steady, metallic, alien. He swept the light across the yard. The beam caught on the old fence, the rusted tools left leaning against the shed, the broken swing at the edge of the porch. Nothing unusual. Nothing that could explain the sound. Then it came again, this time from deeper in the forest. The dog barked once, loud and sharp, before falling silent, ears still locked in the direction of the noise. The man's pulse quickened. He told himself he could just go back inside, shut the door, pretend it never happened. But something inside pushed him forward. Curiosity, or maybe fear disguised as courage. He couldn't tell. He tightened his grip on the flashlight and stepped off the porch. The ground was wet, soft under his boots. Every step seemed too loud, as though the forest was listening. The dog stayed ahead of him, moving low and careful, growling softly with each breath. The man's eyes scanned the darkness. His light cut through trees, revealing nothing but branches, roots, and mist swirling low to the ground. Then, there, the sound grew louder, a high, trembling hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. He stopped, his breath visible in the cold night air. His dog barked again, louder this time, but the noise didn't stop. Instead, it changed. The hum twisted into a strange rhythm, almost like a signal, repeating in short bursts. Metallic, cold, unnatural. The man swallowed hard. He had heard many things in his life. Coyotes howling, wind screaming through trees, even the low rumble of distant thunder, but this was something he could not explain. "What is out there?" he whispered. The dog barked again and darted forward a few steps, nose low, tail rigid. The man followed, his light shaking in his hand. As he moved deeper into the trees, the forest seemed to close around him. The branches above tangled together, blocking out what little moonlight there was. The beam of his flashlight became the only line between him and the dark unknown. Every few steps he paused, listening. The sound was closer now, but still hidden. It was as if it wanted him to follow, to step further into the night. His chest tightened. His instincts told him to turn back. But he didn't. Something about the sound was pulling him. A strange mix of fear and curiosity drove him forward. The dog suddenly stopped. It stood still, every muscle tense, staring ahead. Its ears flat, its growl deep and low. The man raised his flashlight slowly, following the dog's gaze. The beam cut through the mist, through the tangled brush, and stopped. For the briefest moment, he thought he saw something move. A small shape, a shadow bending against the cold air. The strange sound stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than before, pressing against his ears, against his chest. The man stood frozen, his dog at his side, both staring into the dark. Something was out there, watching, waiting. And this was only the beginning. The man stood still, his breath sharp in the cold night air. The forest around him was silent again, but his heart was not. It pounded inside his chest, each beat louder than the last. His dog's growl cut through the silence, deep and warning. Whatever had made that sound was close. He could feel it. Slowly, he moved the beam of his flashlight forward. The mist drifted like smoke between the trees. His light touched branches, roots, and shadows. Then, just as he was about to lower the beam, it caught on something unexpected. A small shape. At first, he thought it was an animal, maybe a child lost in the woods. But as he stepped closer, his breath caught in his throat. It wasn't a child. Not like any child he had ever seen. She was sitting on the ground, her knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her skin glowed faintly, a pale blue light that shimmered against the darkness. Her hair clung to her face, damp with frost. Her large eyes reflected the flashlight like glass, wide and afraid. The man froze. His dog barked once, but then quieted, as if even the animal was unsure what to make of her. For a moment, no one moved. The man tightened his grip on the flashlight. He wanted to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He had seen strange things in his life, storms that split trees in half, animals that wandered too close to his home, but nothing like this. Nothing that looked so human yet so different. She shivered. Her small body trembled violently, as if the cold night was slowly stealing her strength. Her lips, if they could be called lips, were pale and cracked. She looked fragile, too fragile to survive out here alone. The man took a careful step forward. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice soft, though he doubted she understood his words. The girl's eyes followed him, unblinking. Her hands clutched her knees tighter, and she made a small sound, high-pitched, almost like a song cut short. His dog moved closer, sniffing the air, tail low. For a moment, the girl flinched at the sight of the animal. But then something strange happened. She reached out a trembling hand. The glow from her skin faintly lit the dog's fur as her fingers brushed against its head. The dog froze, then wagged its tail. Slowly, it sat down beside her as though accepting her instantly. The man blinked. His dog had never trusted strangers so easily. He crouched down now, keeping his movements slow and gentle. Up close, he could see her face more clearly. Her eyes were too large for her head, deep pools of silver that seemed to hold stars inside them. She was young, maybe no older than 8 or 9 if she were human, but she wasn't. Her clothes were nothing like his. Thin metallic fabric clung to her body, torn in places, stained with dirt. Around her wrist, a small band flickered with weak light as though broken. "You're freezing," he murmured, almost to himself. She tilted her head slightly like she was trying to understand. Then, without speaking, an image burst into his mind. Not words, pictures, stars, a planet cracked with fire. Darkness chasing her, and fear. The man gasped and fell back slightly. The image vanished as quickly as it came. He stared at her, his chest rising and falling fast. "What was that?" he whispered. The girl looked at him, her expression unreadable. She didn't speak, but he felt something. She was trying to tell him she was lost. Alone. Afraid. The cold night air pressed against him. He knew he couldn't leave her here. Whatever she was, whoever she was, she wouldn't survive. He removed his coat and placed it around her shoulders. She flinched at first, but when the warmth touched her, she relaxed a little. The glow of her skin dimmed slightly, hidden under the heavy fabric. "There," he said quietly. "Better." His dog barked once, low and approving, as though agreeing with him. For a few moments, they stayed like that, man, dog, and alien child, in the silence of the forest. But the quiet didn't last. The strange sound returned, not from her this time, from the trees beyond. Louder, sharper, different. The girl's eyes widened. She looked over his shoulder, fear etched across her glowing face. She grabbed his sleeve, her grip surprisingly strong. She pointed with a trembling finger into the dark. The man turned his flashlight toward the sound. Shadows moved. Slow. Deliberate. Someone, or something, was coming. The girl's fear spread to him. Whatever she was running from, it was here. He pulled her closer, his dog pressing against his leg, teeth bared. The man raised the flashlight, but deep down he knew the light would not be enough. The forest had changed. It no longer felt like home. It felt like a trap, and they were no longer alone inside it. And somewhere in the darkness, the hunters were already watching. The forest was no longer silent. Something was moving between the trees. Slow, heavy, careful. The man's flashlight beam shook in his hand as he held it toward the sound. His dog stood stiff at his side, growling, ready to defend. And the small, glowing girl, she clung to his coat, her wide silver eyes fixed on the darkness. The noise came again, a sharp click, then a hum like metal grinding against stone. The man's skin prickled. This was not a sound made by any animal he knew. He swallowed hard. "Who's there?" He called into the forest, though his voice cracked halfway through. No answer. Only the steady crunch of footsteps in the damp earth. The girl tugged at his sleeve. Her hand was cold but strong. She shook her head quickly, her glowing hair falling over her face. He didn't need words to understand. She didn't want him to call out. She wanted him to stay quiet. The man crouched low beside her. "What are they?" he whispered, though he wasn't sure if she could understand. She stared into his eyes, and suddenly his mind filled again with pictures. Not words, not sounds, only images. Tall figures covered in black armor, their faces hidden by smooth masks. Strange weapons glowing with blue light. Her fear was painted across each image. Running, hiding, falling, always chased. The vision ended as quickly as it came, leaving him gasping. He clutched his head, dizzy. The girl stared at him, waiting. She had shared her fear with him, and now he understood. The hunters were here. The man took a deep breath and tightened his grip on the flashlight. "Stay behind me," he said, even though he knew she might not understand. The dog barked suddenly, sharp and loud. The sound echoed through the trees. From the darkness ahead, 3 shadows appeared. Tall, broad, wrong. The man raised his light. What he saw made his blood run cold. They weren't men, at least not completely. Their bodies were tall and human-shaped, but their skin was hidden beneath layers of black armor that seemed to move like liquid. Their heads were covered by helmets smooth as glass, no eyes, no mouth, only a glowing red slit across the front. They walked in perfect rhythm, their heavy steps sinking into the ground. One of them raised a device that pulsed with light, sweeping across the forest floor like a scanner. The girl whimpered and pressed herself against the man's side. The scanner's glow flickered across the leaves, across his boots, across the dog. The hunter's head turned slightly, pausing. The man's chest tightened. He held his breath, willing himself to be invisible. His dog stood tense but silent, as if sensing the danger. The hunter lowered the device and continued forward. Another followed, turning its masked face toward the trees. The third raised a weapon, long and sharp, with a humming edge that made the air vibrate. The man's hand shook. His mind screamed at him to run. But where? The forest was wide, yet these hunters seemed to see everything. Then he felt a small hand slip into his. The girl's touch was warm now, her glow faint but steady. She looked up at him, her silver eyes filled not just with fear but with something else. A message. He didn't hear it. He didn't see it. He felt it. "Trust me." Before he could speak, she closed her eyes. And then it happened. A wave of light, soft and silver, pulsed out from her body. It wasn't bright enough to blind, but it bent the shadows around them, like water bending glass. The man looked down in shock. His own hands were fading into the mist. His dog's body shimmered like smoke. Even the girl's glow softened, melting into the air. They were hidden. The hunters stopped. One of them turned its head sharply, as though sensing something it could not see. It raised the scanner again. The light swept past them, but this time it slid over as if they weren't there at all. The man's heart hammered. He dared not breathe. The girl's grip on his hand tightened. The hunters moved slowly, scanning, waiting, searching. Finally, one gave a sharp mechanical sound, a signal. They turned and moved deeper into the trees, the sound of their heavy steps fading into the distance. The silver mist around the man faded. His body returned to view. His dog shook its head as if waking from a dream. The girl collapsed against him, breathing fast, her glow flickering weakly. The man held her close, stunned. "What did you just do?" he whispered. She didn't answer. But in his mind another image appeared. A starship broken and burning, falling through the sky. Her escape. Her running. Her hiding. And now, her trust in him. The man stared into the darkness where the hunters had gone. His hands were still trembling, but now something stronger than fear grew inside him. He didn't know what she was. He didn't know why she had come. But he knew this much. Whoever those hunters were, they wanted her, and he wasn't going to let them take her. The dog barked once, sharp and certain as if agreeing with him. The man looked at the girl, then back into the forest. The night was no longer quiet. The war had already begun, and he had just taken his first step into it. The night had turned dangerous. The man stood frozen for a moment, his chest still rising fast, his hands still shaking from what he had just seen. The strange girl leaned against him, her breathing weak, her silver eyes dim. His dog pressed close to his leg, ears twitching, ready for the next sound. The hunters were gone, or at least they were out of sight. But the man knew it was not over. They would come back. They were searching, and they would not stop until they found her. The girl grabbed his sleeve again, her hand trembling. She pointed deeper into the forest. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, her voice was inside his head, soft, broken, like a memory not fully formed. Run. The man hesitated. His home was behind him. Safety, or what little of it remained, was behind him. But the girl was right. The hunters knew where he lived now. If they returned, they would search every inch. Staying meant death. He nodded once, almost to himself. All right. We run, his dog barked once, sharp and quick, as if agreeing. The man shifted his coat tighter around the girl and held her against him. She was light, too light, like she had no strength left. He carried her as best as he could, the flashlight beam bouncing in front of him as he moved. The forest stretched out like a maze. Branches clawed at his arms. Roots caught his boots. The mist grew thicker, swirling low across the ground. Each breath burned his lungs, but he didn't stop. Behind him, the sound returned. Heavy steps. Mechanical clicks. The hunters were following. The man's pulse raced. He pushed harder, his legs moving faster than they ever had. His dog ran ahead, barking once, guiding him through the dark paths, but the hunters were fast. Too fast, a red glow pierced the trees behind him. Then another. The hunters' masks lit the forest with their narrow slits of light, scanning every shadow. The man stumbled, nearly falling. The girl clutched his shirt, her silver eyes wide with fear. He picked himself up, forcing his body forward. They couldn't outrun them forever. He knew that. Suddenly, the girl touched his chest with her small hand. Her glow brightened for a brief moment. The ground beneath them shimmered faintly, just enough for him to notice. A faint line of silver light cut across the forest floor, leading between the trees like a hidden trail. She looked up at him, her voice again inside his head. This way. He didn't question it. He followed the glowing path, his dog running close by. The silver light guided them between thick trees, around a fallen log, and down a slope he would have never noticed in the dark. The hunters' footsteps grew louder. Branches snapped as they forced their way through the forest. One of them raised its weapon, and a sharp beam of blue light cut across the trees, burning a line into the bark. The smell of smoke filled the air. The man ducked low, nearly tripping as the beam sizzled past his head. His dog barked furiously, but the man grabbed its collar, pulling it forward. No, keep moving. Another blast cut through the air, striking the ground where he had stood seconds before. Sparks flew, dirt scattered. The girl's eyes glowed brighter. She lifted her hand weakly, and for a moment the silver trail grew stronger. The ground seemed to shift, as though the forest itself was bending to her will. They pushed forward, following the path until it ended at a cluster of rocks. At first, the man thought it was a dead end. His chest sank. But then the girl reached out, pressing her glowing palm against one of the stones. The rock shimmered and faded, revealing an opening behind it, a narrow passage hidden from the outside. The man didn't stop to think. He squeezed through the gap, his dog right behind him. The stone shimmered back into place, closing them inside just as the hunter's red glow reached the clearing. Inside, the air was damp and cold. The narrow tunnel smelled of earth and stone. The man leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. His legs burned, his lungs ached, but they were safe for now. He looked down at the girl. She was pale, her glow dimming fast. Her small chest rose and fell heavily. She had used her strength to hide them. "Thank you," he whispered. She opened her eyes slowly, meeting his gaze. This time no images filled his mind. No visions. Only her tired expression. She had trusted him enough to guide him here. His dog pressed close, its warm fur brushing against his hand. The man rested for only a moment, then listened. The hunters were outside. Their heavy steps echoed faintly. One of them let out a sharp mechanical sound, frustrated. They scanned the area again and again, but the stone wall hid everything. The man knew it wouldn't last. They would find another way. They always would. He pushed himself upright, his body still shaking. He had no plan, no idea where this path led, but there was no choice. He looked at the girl, then at his dog. "We keep moving," he said softly. The tunnel stretched into the darkness ahead, waiting, and somewhere behind, the hunters were already preparing to chase again. The tunnel was dark and narrow, the air damp with the smell of stone. The man moved slowly, one hand on the wall, the other holding the girl close. His flashlight flickered, its beam weak against the endless shadows. His dog padded ahead, nails clicking softly against the ground, nose sniffing the unseen path. Behind them, the forest was alive with sound. The hunters were still out there. Their heavy steps echoed faintly, mixed with sharp clicks and low hums. The man knew they would not stop. They had not been fooled for long. The girl stirred weakly in his arms. Her silver glow was faint, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Still, she lifted her hand and pointed deeper into the tunnel. Her voice came softly into his head, no louder than a whisper of thought. "Safe. Further in." He nodded, though his heart doubted. Nothing about this felt safe, but he had no choice. They pressed forward until the tunnel widened into a cavern. The ceiling arched high above, dripping with water. Strange markings covered the walls, spirals, lines, and symbols that glowed faintly when his light touched them. The girl looked at the markings with recognition. Her silver eyes brightened for a moment, as though the place was familiar. She touched the wall gently, and the symbols glowed stronger, filling the cavern with pale light. The man stared. This is yours, isn't it?" The girl did not answer, but in his mind came a flash, an image of others like her standing in this same place long ago. A safe point, a refuge, a memory. His dog barked suddenly, breaking the silence. The man turned sharply, listening. There it was again, the sound. The hunters had found the tunnel. Their heavy steps echoed closer, mixed with the hum of their strange weapons. The cavern walls seemed to tremble with each thud. The man's stomach tightened. He looked around the cavern desperately. One tunnel stretched deeper into darkness, but what if it was a dead end? What if it trapped them? He had no time to decide. The girl placed her glowing hand on his chest. Another image filled his mind. An escape, a way forward, but it was not clear. It was like she was showing him pieces of a puzzle, leaving him to trust the rest. "I hope you're right," he whispered. The dog growled low, its eyes locked on the tunnel entrance. The red glow appeared first, thin lines of light cutting through the dark as the hunters approached. The man pulled the girl close and back toward the far tunnel. His flashlight beam shook across the walls, the symbols glowing brighter as if warning him of danger. Then the hunters arrived. 3 of them stepped into the cavern, their tall bodies filling the space. Their armor gleamed black, their masks glowing with that same red slit. One raised its scanner, the device pulsing with light. The other spread out, moving in perfect, unnatural rhythm. The man's chest tightened. He raised a broken branch he had grabbed earlier, though he knew it was useless against them. His dog barked fiercely, teeth bared, the sound echoing through the cavern. The hunters stopped, their heads turning toward the noise. One tilted its mask slightly as though studying the animal, then they moved. The first hunter raised its weapon, the humming blade glowing with blue fire. It slashed down, sparks flying as it cut across the stone floor where the dog had stood seconds earlier. The dog leapt aside, barking wildly. The man shouted, stepping back. He held the girl tighter and moved toward the far tunnel. The hunters advanced, their steps heavy and sure. The girl suddenly lifted her hand, her glow flickering stronger. A pulse of silver light burst from her palm, striking the cavern wall. The glowing symbols flared, and the ground trembled. Rocks shifted, dust rained from above, and part of the wall collapsed between them and the hunters. The man stumbled back, shielding the girl from falling stones. When the dust cleared, a pile of boulders separated them from the black armored figures. For a moment, silence. Then, boom. The hunters struck the barrier. Their weapons hummed as they began cutting through the stone. Sparks lit the cavern, shadows flickering wildly. The man didn't wait to see more. He hurried into the far tunnel, the girl limp in his arms, his dog close behind. The walls closed in tighter, the path twisting and uneven. Every few steps, the sound of stone breaking echoed behind them. The hunters were coming. He pushed himself harder, his legs burning. His dog barked now and then, guiding him forward. The girl's glow dimmed again, her strength clearly fading. Finally, the tunnel opened slightly, leading to another chamber. This one was smaller, but at its center stood something unexpected, a pedestal. Old, cracked, covered in dust, but glowing faintly with the same silver light as the girl. She stirred in his arms, lifting her head weakly. Her eyes widened at the sight. She reached out toward it. The man set her down carefully. She touched the pedestal and the glow spread instantly. The whole chamber lit up with soft silver, revealing carvings across every wall, symbols, maps, stars. The man stared in awe. What is this place? But before he could think further, the sound returned. The hunters were almost through. The ground shook with their strikes. The girl pressed her hand firmly to the pedestal, her eyes glowing bright again. She turned to the man, her expression urgent. Another image filled his mind. A ship, buried, hidden, waiting. The hunters would be here any second. The girl was asking him to trust her again. The chamber glowed with silver light, every wall alive with symbols and star maps. The man stood frozen, trying to understand. His dog circled nervously, ears flat, growling at the tunnel where the hunters were breaking through. The girl pressed her hand against the pedestal, her small body trembling with effort. Her eyes glowed brighter now, shining with the same light that filled the room. She was weak but determined. She turned toward the man, her expression sharp with urgency. And then it happened again. His mind filled with images. Not words. Never words. Only visions, a ship buried under the earth. Metallic wings covered in roots and soil. A dark canopy glowing with faint light. Her people fleeing. Her falling. The hunters chasing. The ship waiting. He staggered back, gasping for breath. When the vision faded, the girl collapsed against the pedestal, her glow flickering like a candle almost gone. The man crouched beside her, heart pounding. "That's where you want us to go," he whispered. "That ship." She nodded weakly, her silver eyes glimmering. The sound of stone breaking snapped him back. The hunters were almost inside. Sparks flew through the cracks in the wall, their weapons burning through rock. Time was nearly gone. The dog barked sharply as if shouting the same thought. "Move now." The man pulled the girl into his arms again. She was light, far too light, but her glow steadied as she rested against him. He turned to the far side of the chamber where another tunnel stretched downward into darkness. He didn't think. He ran. The dog sprinted ahead, barking once to guide him. The tunnel twisted sharply, sloping deeper and deeper beneath the earth. Water dripped from the ceiling, the air colder with every step. Behind them, the hunters were coming. Their heavy steps echoed through the rock, steady and relentless. The man's chest ached. His legs burned. But he didn't stop. He followed the faint silver trail the girl left behind, glowing softly along the ground. Every few steps her light dimmed, but then returned, just enough to keep going. The hunter's glow appeared behind them. Red light. Always closer. The man gritted his teeth. "We can't outrun them forever," he muttered. The dog barked again, and then the tunnel opened. They stepped into a wide cavern, the largest yet. At first, the man thought it was only another chamber, but then his flashlight beam touched something enormous. Metal. A curve of smooth silver metal rising from the dirt, half buried beneath stone and roots. A wing his breath caught. He lifted the flashlight higher. It wasn't just metal. It was the ship. The girl stirred in his arms, her silver eyes brightening. She reached out toward it with a trembling hand. The ship was massive, shaped like an arrowhead, its surface scarred and cracked. Roots coiled over it like chains, holding it down. But faint blue lines glowed across its hull, alive but sleeping. The man's dog barked wildly, tail stiff, warning that the hunters were almost here. The man looked at the girl. "Can you open it?" She pressed her glowing palm against the ship's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the blue lines flared brighter, racing across the surface like veins of fire. The ground shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. A crack split open along the ship's side, and a ramp slowly lowered with a hiss of escaping air. The man staggered forward, carrying her up the ramp. His dog leapt ahead, paws clattering against the metal. The inside of the ship glowed faintly, strange lights flickering to life as they entered. Behind them, the hunters burst into the cavern. The man turned sharply. 3 tall figures stepped through the tunnel, their red masks glowing brighter than ever. One raised a weapon, its blade humming with blue fire. The man stumbled backward, clutching the girl tightly. "Hurry!" he whispered, though he knew she was already doing everything she could. The hunters advanced, their steps echoing against the cavern walls. Then the ship answered. Lights snapped on across the floor and ceiling. Panels shifted. A deep hum filled the air, vibrating through the metal. The hunters hesitated, their heads tilting sharply as though surprised. The girl raised her hand again, her glow pulsing stronger. The ramp began to close. The hunters broke into a run. One of them lunged forward, its blade raised high. But the ramp sealed shut before it reached them, cutting off the red glow with a heavy slam. The man collapsed against the wall inside, his breath ragged, his arms still around the girl. The dog stood alert, ears forward, ready for anything. The ship trembled, a low sound rising from deep within its body. Lights brightened, casting the cabin in blue and silver glow. The man looked around in awe. Strange symbols lit the walls, matching the ones he had seen in the tunnels. The girl pulled weakly from his arms and touched one of the glowing panels. Her eyes lit silver as the ship responded. The hum grew louder. The man's heart pounded. Are we leaving?" But she didn't answer with words. Instead, another image filled his mind. The ship lifting, the earth shaking, the hunters screaming below as fire swallowed them. His chest tightened. He wanted to believe it. He wanted to believe this ship could save them. But outside, the hunters weren't done. The sound of weapons striking metal echoed faintly through the hull. Sparks lit against the ship's surface as they tried to cut inside. The girl's glow flickered again. She was pushing herself too far. The man placed a hand on the wall beside her. "I'll help," he said, even though he didn't know how. The ship's hum deepened, and the floor vibrated beneath his feet. The escape had begun, but so had the war. The ship trembled as if waking from a long sleep. Lights flickered across the walls, glowing lines racing like rivers through metal veins. The hum deepened, shaking the floor under the man's boots. His dog stood tense, growling at the sealed ramp as sparks flashed from outside. The hunters were still there. Their weapons slammed against the hull, each strike sending a shiver through the ship. The man clenched his fists. The walls were strong, but how long could they hold? The girl stood near the control panel, her small body glowing brighter than before. She pressed her trembling hands against the surface, her silver eyes fixed on the symbols dancing across it. She was controlling the ship, or maybe calling it back to life. The man stepped closer. "Can it fly?" he asked, voice rough. She turned her gaze to him. For a moment, no words, only silence. Then the familiar flood of images filled his mind. The ship breaking free of the ground. The hunters scattering below. Stars above, endless and wide, freedom, safety, escape. But there was more. Another image flashed. Him standing at the edge of the ramp. His dog at his side. The girl looking back at him. A choice, go with her, or stay behind. The vision ended. He staggered back, gripping the wall. His heart hammered in his chest. "No," he muttered. "Not now. Don't put this on me." The dog barked sharply, snapping him from his thoughts. Outside, the hunters' strikes grew louder. One of them roared, the sound metallic and inhuman. The ship groaned under the pressure. The man pressed a hand to his forehead. His mind raced. He had lived his whole life here in this forest, in that small wooden house. Everything he knew was here. The earth, the trees, the sky he had grown under. But now, standing inside this alien ship, he realized something. That life was already gone. The hunters had destroyed it the moment they arrived. His home was no longer safe. His world had already changed. The girl staggered, her glow flickering. She was pushing herself too far. The man rushed to catch her before she fell. She was so light in his arms, so fragile, and yet she carried power that could shape the world. Her silver eyes looked into his, and though she said nothing, he understood. She wasn't asking him to save her. She was asking him to choose. The dog barked again, ears pinned back, tail rigid. The ramp shuddered as another strike landed from outside. Sparks rained down. Time was running out. The man's throat tightened. If I go with you, there's no coming back, is there? He whispered. The girl blinked slowly. Her eyes softened, almost sad. Another vision filled his mind. Not just stars, but battles. Hunters spreading across the universe. Planets burning, and her people scattered and lost. She wasn't only running. She was carrying the last hope of something greater. He gasped, pulling away from the images. His chest burned. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man who lived in the woods with his dog. And yet here he was, standing at the edge of something that could decide more than just his life. The ship's hum grew louder. The ground shook violently as roots and soil tore away from the hull. Dust rained from the cavern ceiling. The hunters outside stumbled but roared again, their weapons glowing brighter as they tried to cut through. The dog barked, snapping and growling, ready to fight if they broke in. The girl reached up and touched the man's chest, her silver light spilling across his shirt. Her hand trembled, but her message was clear. With me, or without me. The ramp's metal groaned as cracks formed under the hunter's strikes. The choice was seconds away. The man looked at the dog, loyal, fierce, ready to follow him anywhere. Then he looked at the girl, fragile but carrying something beyond imagination. His heart raced. His mind screamed. He knew whatever choice he made would change everything. Stay here and face the hunters, protecting his world but risking certain death. Go with her and step into a war that was not his, into a universe he didn't understand. The ship's engines roared. The cavern shook. Rocks crashed down as the ground split beneath them. The hunters gave a final furious strike. The ramp door bent under their weapon. The man closed his eyes, his decision burning in his chest. He opened them again, breath sharp, eyes fixed on the girl. He stepped forward. The dog barked once, sharp, certain, like it already knew the choice. The girl's eyes filled with silver light as the ship lifted, fire blazing from its engines. Outside, the hunters screamed. The cavern shook, collapsing around them, and in that moment, as the ship tore free from the earth, the man's old life vanished. But what waited for him among the stars was still unknown.